My name is Jason Lengstorf. You can find more about me at jason.af. I also run a live coding show called Learn with Jason, where every week, a couple of times, I pair up with somebody in the community to learn something new in 90 minutes. It's a lot of fun. It happens on Twitch live. So make sure you, if you're interested, you head over to learnwithjason.dev to learn more. So my goal for today is to build an app that's going to let us all interact together in real time. And I'm going to see if I can do that in under 45 minutes and get it deployed so that we can all actually see what each other is doing. And to do that, I'm going to be using Vite, vitejs.dev if you're interested in that. I'm also going to be using Apollo GraphQL, which is going to let us set up a client-side subscription. And then I'm going to use Hasura, which is a way that we can get GraphQL set up very, very quickly. So to get this started, let's actually just jump right in and get this thing scaffolded and deployed. So I'm going to start by saying npm init vite at latest, and I'm going to do it in this project and see if I can make that work. So the name of this is going to be ATO Vite Hasura Apollo. I'm going to use React for it. All right, so now let's run npm install. That should get us all of our stuff. And what I'm going to do to make sure that it works is run Netlify dev. I'm using the Netlify CLI. If you are interested in that, lives over here. Here's the CLI, and here's our app that's now running. Okay, so we've got this thing running. Now what I want to do is I want to just get this thing deployed. So I'm going to git init. All right, so we have an empty project. Here it is. And then I want to git add all. Okay, so now they're all added. I'm going to git commit and say initial scaffolding of the site. All right, and then I need to create a repo. So I'm going to use the git CLI. This is github.com. This is a power move if you don't already have this one. So we're going to gh repo create, and then I'm going to do learn with Jason for the org and ATO Vite Hasura Apollo. And that's going to create the repo for me. I want this to be public so everybody can see it. It's going to create that repo in this directory. So I'm going to say yes. And there we go. Now that I've got this, I can git push upstream origin main. And that's going to put the code up on the internet. So now you can see it at github.com/learnwithjason/ATO-Vite-Hasura-Apollo. This is our scaffolding. Okay, so let's get that deployed to the internet so that we can push our progress in real time. So to do that, I'm going to use the Netlify CLI. First, I have to run Netlify login to make sure that I've got my account running. And it says I'm already logged in. Great. So then I'm going to run Netlify init to set up a new project. And I want to create and configure a new site. So I'm going to hit that. It's going to let me choose for my team. So let me choose my own. And we're going to call this ATO Vite Hasura Apollo. So there we go. It's picking out a command. Vite build is the command that works for me. Dist is the default for Vite. Cool. And the functions folder is Netlify functions. Cool. I'm not going to set up a netlify.toml because I don't think we need one. So I'm just going to let the build settings work. If we need to change that, we will. Okay, so now we have set up Netlify CI/CD, and we can see that it updated the git ignore, but we don't really need to worry about that. So let's open here. And this is going to open up the Netlify dashboard for me. And we can see that the site is now building. So the site is, oh, it's already built. Okay, man, I love Vite. 17 seconds to build and deploy a Vite site. That is just unbelievably fast. And now this site is live on the internet. So you can go to ato-vite-hasura-apollo.netlify.app. And let's see, time check, we're about 3 minutes in, right? Yeah, 5 minutes in. Cool. So not bad for going from an empty folder to a fully published website. But as you can see, this is just the default. So we want to actually build some code. So the first thing I want to do is I want to figure out kind of how we want to set this thing up. So my goal today is to build a site that will let everybody vote on something, okay? And my thinking is that the way we can do this is we can have a a database, and I'm going to put in a question, and then everybody can vote on answers. And so if we think about the way that we're going to structure that, let's just get ourselves a document open here. We can save this as, why don't we start it by saving it as readme.md. Cool. And then in here, let's just figure out what we need to do. So the first thing we need to figure out is the schema. And the way that I'm picturing this to work is that we're going to need two things here. So we're going to need questions, and we're going to need answers. And for each question, we don't need much. We need an ID, some kind of unique identifier, and then we need the text of that question. And then for our answers, we're going to need an ID. We're going to need a question ID to relate it to that question. We're going to need a text, and we're going to need like a count. So I'm not going to do anything particularly deduplication minded. We're not going to make people log in so they get like one vote per question or anything like that. So for folks who are watching live, if you want to spam this form, you will be able to. And so, you know, we're going to ask what I hope are funny questions. And so, you know, spamming is allowed in this particular case. I will ask everybody to not write any bots though, because we will get rate limited, and that makes this a lot less fun. So please don't like set up a loop in your console or anything to spam this, because it'll break it for rate limiting and it won't be fun. So let's actually build this out. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to Hasura. So with Hasura, we've got the ability to get started now, and I'm going to use Hasura Cloud, which is kind of all hosted, and I'm going to set up a new project. So let's get on the free tier. US West sounds good to me, and let's call this ATO Vite Hasura Apollo. Not allowed. What did I do? Oh, here we go. And then now that we've set this up, this is going to be configured so that we can get this thing up and running. And it does have an admin secret applied. Good. I needed that. That means that when I show this URL, people won't be able to fly in and just start using it. So this is going to get us set up here. We've got our project is initializing. So what this is doing is setting up a database. So what Hasura does is Hasura gives us a console that lets us create and manage GraphQL APIs over the top of Postgres. And so this is really, really powerful stuff. And it looks like they have a new feature. They've got REST now, so that's pretty cool. So why don't we go in here and set up, create a Heroku database. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to create a Heroku database, and I am already connected to my Heroku account, so that just worked, which is pretty great. And now that this is connected, let me hide this so that we can actually see the whole screen here. So I now have a database, and in this database, I want to create some data. So I'm going to create a schema, and we're going to call this, we'll call this ATO questions. Schema cannot have, all right. So we'll do it like that instead. Source with name default is inconsistent. Do I need to, wait, do I need to call it something? Hold on. I just call it default then? Oh boy, source with name default is inconsistent. This seems like a problem. Let's just load a template. How about that? Cool. Yeah, this is fine. We can start here. Oh no, did you break on me? Don't do this. Just let me add some tables. Let me manage. I did connect the database. Oh, it didn't actually connect to the database. Is that what happened? Well, this is going to be embarrassing if adding data source. You added the data source. Here it is. Okay. So now if I'm in here, I've got public. Okay. All right. Here we go. So now I can create a table. So something just didn't work that first time. So let's set up questions. And if you remember, we had decided that our questions, if I can resize this window, there it is. Our questions only need an ID. And so I'm going to set this up as, let's call it a auto incrementing integer. That's all we really care about. And we can leave that as is. And then for this one, we'll set text. And this is going to be a text type. And the primary key will be the ID. All right. And we're just going to let that one go. So here we go. Oh boy, what's going on in here, friends? I'm having Hasura trouble today. Do I need to make this? Make that unique. It's not nullable. Try again. Oh boy, what is going on with Hasura today? I don't know what's happening here. Let's see if we can just reload the page and try again. Let's go questions. We're going to add an ID. Let's see if we can add just an ID. And if that'll let us go, primary key is going to be an ID. I'm going to hit add table. And it did create the table. Okay, so now we have the questions. I'm going to try to modify it. I'm going to add a new column. We're going to call it question. We'll give it a column type of text. It's not nullable. And just for duplicate's sake, let's make it not, can't be duplicated. All right, so now we have questions in here and we can see ID in question. So let's add a new table, and this table is going to be called answers. And inside of it, we're going to have an ID. This is going to be auto increment. It's going to have question ID, and that is going to be an integer. And this one is going to be, let's see, so we've got the primary key is an ID, but I want the foreign key to reference to questions. And so from question ID to ID, right? So now what this will do is this lets us connect the data from our questions table to our question ID. And as you can see, we're not doing anything particularly fancy here, but then we can set up the text and we'll make that a type of text. And we also want to set a count, and we'll just make that an integer. And the default value for that one is going to be 0. All right, so that should be everything we need. Let's add this table, do the thing, no errors. Hey, okay. All right, so we have our answers, we have our questions. And if I go in here and I want to insert a question, I can make a question. I think I just screwed that up and made that an empty one. So we will have to add another one, but we'll say, is a hot dog a sandwich? And we'll save that. All right. And another question that we can ask that's a big one, probably a burning question, is, let's see, which type of bear is best? Any Office fans in the audience today? All right, so we've got these. I'm going to go ahead and trash this empty one, and we'll just have our 2 questions today. All right, so then what I can do is I can go into answers, and I can insert a row here, and we will say for question ID 2, which was our first question about a sandwich, we can add in yes. And then we can also add in no. All right. And then for our other question for 3, we're just gonna keep the joke going from The Office. So we'll say Bears beats and Battlestar Galactica. Okay, so now if we look in here, we've got, here are the answers to our questions. So we want to be able to pull these in. And so the nice thing about GraphQL is that when we come out here and we want to start actually looking at these, if I make this bigger so that we can actually see what's going on, I want to clear this out. We don't need the date or the limit or the offset or anything. So let's get the questions. And then I'm going to get the ID and the question. And you see how I don't have my answers? I don't like that. I want to fix that. So let's go set this up. Let's go make sure that we can get those questions. So I'm going to go into questions. I'm going to set up a relationship, and I'm going to see how it already suggested this. The answers.question ID matches to question ID. So I'm going to add, and we're going to save. And now that I've got this, I can come back out here, and I've got my ID and my questions, and I also have answers. So now I can get the ID, text, and the count. And if I run this query, now I get the question, is a hot dog a sandwich, and the potential answers along with their counts. Okay, so this is all really good. This is what I want, because it's going to allow me to pull the questions and the answers. So let's get this into my site, right? Let's do a time check. Okay, 10:17. We've got about 28 minutes left. Here we go. So what we're going to do next is we are going to go to our Vite project, and I want to, first and foremost, let's just make this call. How are we going to do this? I'm going to make these read only. So let's go add some permissions so that we don't have to pass around secrets today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to questions. I'm going to go to permissions, and I'm going to create a public role. And the public role can't insert data, can't update data, can't delete data. It can only read data. Wait. It's going to need to be able to vote, can't it? Okay, so we're going to allow updates, but we're going to do some changes here. So first, it can select rows without any checks. Okay, it's going to be able to pull in the ID and the question. Good. So I'm going to save those permissions. All right, so then to update, right, what I want to be able to do is I want it to be able to update without any checks, but I only, oh wait, hold on. This one doesn't need, no. I was just kidding. The questions don't need to be updated. So we can leave this one. You can't modify questions from the site, right? That's not allowed. We're not going to allow that. But in answers, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here. We've got public. So public can select the ID, question ID, text, and count. Good. All right. I'm going to save that. And then for update, all I'm going to let it do is update the count. That's the only thing that you can change from the public API. So now that I've saved this, it'll show us, you can see partial, there's a filter on what you can do. Now what we can do is we can go out to our default role here. So what I'm going to do is go into, let's see, it is in envars. And then I can say new envar, and we'll say default. Nope. What's it called? I might have to scroll here. Unauthorized role. So the unauthorized role is going to be public. So we're going to add. Is it okay? I'm going to come back out here. And we've got now a URL. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to come out to my project here. And in my project, we can just open this thing up. Did I already open it? No, here. I did. And out here, we can test that this works. So a way that we can test that this works is we could pull up something like Postman. Another way that we can do it is we can go into our app.jsx, and I'm going to use a use effect. And in here, I'm going to say use effect, and this will be a function. Inside this function, this is going to fire just when the thing opens. So I'm going to use effect, and then inside I set up an async function because you can't make a use effect async. I'm going to set up an async function called fetch questions, and inside of it, we will get a result, and that'll be the result of awaiting fetch, and we're going to pass in this, and then I need to send in a method of post. I need to send in headers, and I don't actually, I might not need to send in any headers at all, do I? Let me send in a content type just to make sure. So we're going to send in a content type of application JSON, and then we're going to send in a body, and the body is going to be JSON stringify, and we need to send in a query. And that query is going to be a GraphQL query, and then we can optionally send in variables, but in this particular instance, we're not going to need any, so we're going to leave it as an empty object there. So let's go back out here. Let's grab this. And we're going to stick this in here. And I'm going to call this like load questions or something so that we don't have generic names in our code. Once we get down here, I'm going to say if result okay, then we want to like throw a new error and say something went wrong. Loading data from Hasura. And we can just kind of, let's console.error the whole result so we can peek at that and see what happened. And then if we get down here, we're going to say data equals await result.json. And then we can change this out to be data, set data. By default, it will be nothing. And down here, we're going to change this whole thing out. We'll just set data to be data. And outside of this function, we actually have to call it, right? So we're going to fetch questions. And this will do our async await. So I'm going to drop all of this out. And instead of that, I'm going to set up a pre. I'm going to just stringify data. Okay. So now that I've done this, what should happen is because we are fetching from Hasura and because we've got that public role that's unauthorized. So if we don't have any authentication key, it's just going to send it with the public role, which should allow us to pull in all of this data. So let's find out if that works by running the app. Okay, so it's running. Here's our data. All right, so we're in business here. This is not bad. So let's make this look a little bit like an app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up, let's see, it's data.question. So we can say, actually, you know what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simplify that down to be data.questions. And then let's make sure that does what I want it to do. It didn't, it threw. Or it didn't throw. What's going on? Where did my... Okay, I screwed. Oh, wait. I know what happened. We need to destructure because data is the first prop. There we go. Okay, so now in here, we have an array of questions, and that's the data that we get back. That's perfect. So that means that if I actually want to clean this up a little bit, I can set this to questions, and then we'll set this one to set questions. And then this down here will be questions.map, and we can map over a question. And for each of these, I want to set up, let's call it a div. Div's fine, I guess. And we'll set it up as a div. Inside of that div, we are going to say we want the question. So we'll get question.text. And then underneath it, we're going to question.answers. Let me make sure this works the way that I expect it to. Question.answers, that's an array. Okay, map. And so under here, I need to give this a key, don't I? So we'll do the key of question.id. And that's not going to work because it needs to be unique. So we'll say question ID because it's auto incrementing question and answer. So down here, when I do a button, that also needs a key, and that will be answer.id. And Inside of that, we can say answer.text, and maybe we just show the count right in here, answer.count. And that's not perfect, but it should do what we want it to do. Let's see what I messed something up. Let's look. Lots of console errors. That's always a good sign. Let's see. Cannot read properties of undefined on line 51. Questions.map. So should be data, set questions. Questions. Oh, okay. Yep. I need to check this. And so what we'll say is, let's go questions. Oh, this is gross. Let's see. So here we go. That's going to be our just do something like that, and that should fix it. Nope, still screwed it up. Now it is data is not defined. I don't believe you. App.jsx 65. Oh, and that's not defined because we changed it. Okay, so now that part is good, but it looks like I changed this out to be question. So that's not a great variable name, but we'll live with it. But no, now we got it. Okay, so these are kind of functioning. They don't look great. They don't actually do anything yet, but what they do is they let us get all of this going. Okay, so now we are into the lightning round here, because what I need to do is get a GraphQL subscription set up so that we can actually see these change in real time, which means I'm going to head over to the GraphQL docs here, and I want to first get started. So I'm going to npm install GraphQL client and GraphQL. So let's get that rolling. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to put all of this inside of my site in the app. So because we're not going to, let's see, do I need to do it in the app? I can do it in the main, I think. Yeah, let's do it in the main. So I'm going to grab the Apollo client, in-memory cache, all that stuff. I need to set up a new client. Okay. That new client that I'm going to set up needs to be tied to the sandbox or to our GraphQL instance. So I can go in here, get this. Now I'm going to drop this in. Okay, that's good. That's good. I'm happy about that. Then we're going to come out here and we are going to, let's see, we don't want to do the client part. I actually want to use our provider here. So we've got the provider, use query and GQL. Good. Those are all what we want. I'm going to wrap the Apollo provider with the client. So we will say Apollo provider, and the client is client, right? And then down here, we can close that out, save it. All right. Okay. So we're getting closer. We're getting closer. Now, what we would need to do inside is actually set up our query. So we're going to take this bit. So why don't I just copy this, drop this part out because we're not using it. We'll go into app.jsx. I'm going to drop this in, get rid of these bits because we don't need them anymore. And then down here, what we're going to do is we are going to change this out to be a use query. So our use query is going to be a const of loading error data, right? So this is the pattern for use query. And then inside of here, we need to GQL tag, right? So we pulled in this GQL tag. This is a tag template literal, which lets us do some fancy pants stuff inside to make things work. But what it means for us is that we can just copy paste this directly over. Okay. And then I can get rid of this. I can get rid of this, right? So all that goes away. And then we can, for now, let's just comment this out. And what we'll do instead is I'm going to JSON stringify, and we will actually just do loading, error, and data so that we can see what's happened here. And we'll make that look good. Okay, what don't you like? You don't like this. Oh yeah, because we got to curly quote the whole thing, get those curly boys in there. All right, so now what we should have, if we reload the app, is not that one. This one is it refused to connect because I didn't start the app. That's usually a challenge. And here we go. Loading true, loading false, data questions. Look at it go. My goodness, that is nice. So, I mean, yeah, it's doing exactly what we'd expect it to do. That's great. So what I can do then is we can do I mean, if we want to, we can set our questions the same way. But what I can do is I can do something like, I don't know, let's say if loading, we will return loading. And then down here, we can do the same thing, but for error. And with this one, we'll keep this piece here. We'll just only include the error. So if something goes wrong, we can see what went wrong quickly on screen. This would not be production ready, but it's going to work just fine for our purposes. If we get past loading, we get past error, then we're going to do this bit here. We're going to say, let's uncomment this part. And I'm going to leave this part out. And so instead of using that, we're going to do one of these. So if we've got data.questions, then we can data.questions, or hold on. How's that going to work? Because it's data.data, isn't it? It is. It's data questions. Yeah, that should work. So we're going to go data questions. And then if I've done that correctly, there we are. We're back in business. We're now using Apollo to do the thing. And we have about 12 minutes left to try to make this thing a subscription. So let's see if we can do it. So I'm going to get into my subscriptions. And actually, while we're waiting, why don't I let's ship this. So git add everything. We're going to git commit and say get Hasura and Apollo wired up. We're going to push that. And if we go and look over here, because we just pushed that, we can see that it is now building again. So here in a moment, we will see this go live and you'll be able to look at it. Then what we want to do is we want to get subscriptions rolling. So to set one up on the client side, I need to setting up the transport. Great. So I need subscriptions transport WebSocket. And WebSocket is what lets us do very cool things with real time. And now we've got a WebSocket link. So I'm going to grab one of these. And we're going to set that up in our main.jsx along with here. So drop that in here. And our WebSocket link is going to be like this. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this, drop it in here, and we're going to set it up to be WebSocket with the extra S for secure. And this is going to give us the ability to do a WebSocket link to Apollo. So we can split by WebSocket link. I don't know that I'm going to worry about it too much. So I'm just going to send everything into, let's see. What if I don't want to do it like that? What if I just want to, I think this will be fine. We're just gonna throw this WebSocket link in to our client. And the way I'm going to do that is instead of using this, I'm going to use a link to WebSocket link. And do we need a different cache? I think we can just keep the in-memory cache. That should be fine, I think. Let's try it and see what happens. So I'm going to Netlify dev. and it's loading. It has loaded. Okay, and now here's the cool part. So if I go out here and I look at this, and I look at my GraphQL request, you see how it's a WebSocket request now? And we can see that it's looking for messages. So if I go into my API here, and let me just swap this one out, and let's add in a mutation. So my mutation is going to be down here. We can just build it. We're going to add a new mutation. And what I want to do is update answers. And we're going to increment count. Can't read that at all. Increment count by 1, where ID equals, we'll say 2. All right, so what that's going to do is it's going to give us a incremented count of 1. So this is basically how we're going to vote. And what we will get back is returning, we'll say ID count text. All right, so now if I run this, I'm going to run the mutation. It runs, and so the count is 1 now, and we voted for no. So if I come back over and look, what we should have seen is a message, and we did not, which means that I've done something somewhat wrong here. Oh, I know why. It's because I didn't set it up as a subscription. So here's the thing that's cool about this. When we have our queries, which are in this window, if we change them to be subscriptions, not a lot actually changes. So we can just go in and use this exact same query as our subscription, right? And then I can stand up this subscription, and it still does, like, all of it's exactly the same. So I can go in here to my query, and I can just change this out to be a subscription. Okay, so I'm going to change this out to be a subscription. We're going to go back over here. We are going to, it's already reloaded. So let's just make sure it's all doing what we expect. Here's our WebSocket. Okay, let's run that, that mutation one more time. So I'm going to run, see, it's still running here, but now I can run my mutation. The count is 2. And if we come back out and look, do we see what failed? Running a query requires a GraphQL query, but a subscription was used instead. Ah, dang it. Okay, I know what I did wrong. We are going to use subscription. And I think use subscription is a little bit different in what it returns. So let's get back here and look at it. So we're going to executing, and we use data loading. Good, good, good. Okay, so I don't actually think that's going to change. I think it's going to work exactly the same. There it is. All right, so one more time. We now have everything running. I think we're going to run this mutation one more. There it goes. And if all is well, it says 3 now. Haha, we've done it. Okay, so this is really cool. Now we have real-time subscriptions running. So we can now set up the mutation. So what I want to do is set up a mutation so that we can very quickly use. So all we need to do really is set up this use mutation. So I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to use mutation. And in our mutation, what we're going to get back is we are going to get back a function that mutates. So I'm going to just go ahead and copy this for time. And we're going to say that our mutate function takes in GQL. And this one needs variables, right? So the variables that we're going to get go into, where is it? Here's our mutation. So we pass in the variables that we need, and then we pass in those variables to this function here. See, so we create our function and then we pass them in here. So I'm going to set this up with our mutation, and we're going to take the one that we wrote. So here is our mutation. If I can select it, geez. Okay, here we go. Coming back over here, we are going to set up this mutation, and we'll say vote for answer. All right, and so this one needs to be an ID. And so I need to set that up here. It's going to be question ID, and that is going to be an integer and it's required. That's what all of that means. So that's going to be what we get back. And I am going to then come into this mutate function, and we can just call this like cast vote. All right. And so this function then we need to put down here. And what we'll do is we will say on click, we're going to cast vote, and inside of it, we're going to set question ID equal to, I screwed that up. It shouldn't be question ID. It should be answer ID. So we're just going to simplify this right down to ID. And so then down here, this is also going to be an ID, and we're going to use answer.id as our way to vote. So now, if all of this worked as expected, let's see if we got any errors. We got an error. What is our error? It doesn't like that we use the same field names, and that's okay, because you know what? We're not actually going to use these. So I'm going to leave these out entirely. We don't need them. That should make it happy again. I don't think I might have to stop and restart to get that to work. Let's try it again. Okay, it doesn't like use mutation. Const declarations require an initialization value. What did I do? Oh, I really messed that up. Okay, so that should actually work. Okay, so now that we've got this, what should happen is I should, let's see, that didn't do it. Something exploded. Oh boy, 3 minutes. We can do this. We can do this, y'all. On click listener expected a function, instead it got a value of object type. And that is because I didn't call this as a function. Yeah, that's the problem. So we are going to set it up like this. We're going to try that again. Okay. Almost worked. Expecting a value for non-nullable variable ID, which should have been there. So what went wrong? I screwed up which piece? Let's go look. Got to wrap it into variables, everyone. That's what went wrong. So this is my variables. And we're going to wrap that in a variable. Now, nothing up my sleeve. We're going to pretend this was the first try, everyone. Click it. There we go. It's updated. You can vote. Don't know why the answers are changing direction, but now if I git commit everything and we'll say feature real-time voting works. We're going to push that live. We're going to go watch it happen. So this will show up here in just a second. There it is. And give it a few seconds because Vite is so freaking fast. And here we go. There we go. All right, we're live. So now if we reload this, so if everybody wants to go and visit ATO, Vite, Hasura, Apollo API, or sorry, apollo.netlify.app. Now remember, don't spam this. Like don't set up a console.log or anything, or a loop in the console, because it will get us rate limited, which makes it less funny. It makes it less fun for all of us. So, you know, click the buttons, click away, but don't do any like programmatic stuff because rate limiting is no fun. But as you can see, like this is working. The chaos in the buttons is an unexpected bonus. So surprise, your click is going to be a risky one because you might just click on the wrong button. But I'm feeling pretty good about this, right? This is a lot of fun. We were able to build it all very quickly, and it is all up online. You can see the code that we wrote right here, and it's deployed over here. We were able to get that up and running very quickly with let's run through the tools. We did Vite.js for the scaffolding of the site. We used Apollo as our client-side GraphQL library. We used Hasura as our GraphQL backend. So this gives us a Postgres database and a GraphQL wrapper on top of it so that we can do this all very quickly, including subscriptions. We use Netlify to deploy and the Netlify CLI for development. And all of that allowed us to get this thing up and running. So I think at this point, we are ready for questions. And time check, I did that exactly in 45 minutes. I am so proud of myself right now. When we got 10 minutes out, I'm not going to lie, everybody, I thought we were going to just have to like hand wave away the end of this. We got rate limited. Hasura has a cloud limit of 60 requests a minute. So that is definitely, yeah, what a lot of fun. Thank you all very much for hanging out. So so hit me. What are your questions? What do you got?
Let's see some questions. I haven't seen a direct question, but yeah, many appreciation for your talk today. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. Thank you to All Things Open for giving me a spot. I love doing any kind of live coding is always fun for me. This was a very kind of chaos mode live coding. It's one of my favorite ways to do it. Is let's pick something that you've never built before and see if you can get it done in a few minutes.
Yeah, it is so cool.
Yeah, so okay, so I'm not seeing any questions come in. So how do you want to call it here? Should we go to break early, or let's see, I got a question. Ryan Olson asks, can you recommend any resources to learn more about Netlify? Well, there's two parts. So the first one is, I think, a quick answer, which is this recording going to be available in the future? I think the answer is yes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this recording will be available if you want to see it again. If you want to learn more about Netlify, we have all sorts of fun stuff here. I use Netlify all the time on my show. So if you want to see more on learnwithjason.dev, I'm also on a less time constrained stream, happy to do more demos and show things like that. Another good place to go if you want to learn is we have explorers.netlify.com, where we have a lot of fun things. So we can do split testing. We've got different deployments for, you want to use Nuxt, you want to use Next. We also have like our serverless functions offering, which is a whole lot of fun if you haven't used that. Netlify redirects, and we've got more coming on our CLI and everything. Our docs are also very good. So dig into those and have a lot of fun there. Deepak, how does one learn something so quick the way that I do? I'll tell you the secret is you just got to do it for 20 years. I've been coding for a very long time, and the biggest thing for me is just to make sure you're having fun. Like if you're not making yourself laugh, if you're not doing things that you feel like make you smile, it's harder to stick with them. So I always pick projects that are fun, that make me smile, that make me want to share them around with my friends, and that tends to help. Like that keeps me interested. The other thing too is make reduced use case examples. Don't pick like a whole app to learn with. Like pick something silly like this. Can I make a question and answer thing and let people vote on it in real time? This is a super reduced use case. I didn't write any CSS. We didn't do anything to try to make it super fancy. I didn't even sort the dang answers so that they would be less chaotic, right? And by controlling the scope, it makes it easier to focus on what you're trying to learn, and that tends to make it a little less intimidating when you dive into new technology. But the best way to learn, in my experience, is just to keep building stuff, keep building small things, and hang out with people who build stuff, because they'll show you something cool, and then you'll get excited. And when you're excited, that's the best time to go and try, because you'll have the energy to get through it, right? And if you like seeing new things, again, come hang out with me on the show. We do this twice a week. We've got some incredible stuff coming up. This is going to be, we're going to build a vanilla.js composable text editor, or sorry, a React composable text editor. We're going to do workflow development. We're going to do observability. That's going to be a ton of fun. We do accessibility work, distributed databases, progressive web apps, like all sorts of things are going to happen on this show. And if you're just interested in learning a little bit more, there's always just an intro, a taste of something that you're maybe interested in learning. And if you go to the backlog, I have over close to 300 episodes now. I think around 260 episodes of the show that are really good. So if you're interested, go over here, hit this search button, and just type in the thing you're interested in, and it might be there. You want to learn some Svelte? Great. You want to learn some Astro? Oops, if I can not push buttons. You want to learn some Astro? Yeah, we've got an episode on that. So there's a ton of stuff in here if you want to learn. With that, I think we're getting close to time. Did you want me to go over anything in particular before we wrap it up?
I think we got it cover most of the stuff. And if they want to connect with you or want to get through some of these episodes that interest them, either as a follow-up of this particular session or maybe learning something new from scratch. Yeah, that's so awesome, Jason. Thanks again from All Things Open.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And for anybody who wants to connect after the fact, the easiest way is hit me up on Twitter. And if you build something you're proud of, also hit me up on Twitter. I love seeing what people do. I'd especially be interested if you start using any of this real-time stuff, because there's so many fun things you can do with it.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today, and the next session maybe starts at 1. Let's see, at exactly at 2, right? Yeah, by Brandon. All right, thanks, Jason, again. Yeah.
Thanks,
bye-bye.
y'all. Have a good one.